the previous videos, we discussed about the time allocated for the students to complete a final exam paper. We mentioned that in order to determine the adequate durations given to the students for a final exam paper, we as the lecturer should have ourselves gone through the exam questions paper under the similar settings of the students. Whichever durations that we spend in order to complete the paper shall be multiplied by 3. This is an estimation for the adequate durations given to the students. We also mentioned that based on what you have assumed in the mode of the ratio of 1 to 3, you will need to do some verifications by observing the performance of the students during the final exam. You can always cross-check somewhere in the middle of final exam, visit the exam venue and observe if a majority of the students has completed the paper. You can also cross-check based on their answer script as the final exam completed, see if the majority of the students can finish all the questions within the given durations. Also, in the previous videos, we talked about a misconception that theoretical questions can only be assessed up to C3. It seems like very difficult to access to C4, C5 and C6. Personally, I had that misconceptions when I first became a lecturer. When I had limited knowledge about Bloom's taxonomy. Even nowadays, there are still many lecturers embrace on this. Many argues that we cannot have theoretical questions to be assessed at higher thinking orders, such as C4, C5 and C6. This is not true. Therefore, we're going to discuss about this. Let me show you an example. First, what are the C1, C2, C3, C4, C5 and C6? You may refer to my previous videos about Bloom's taxonomy previously. The C1 to C6 refers to different types of thinking orders under the cognitive domain. C1 it will be the simplest, and C6 it will be the most advanced. It is a measurement indicating different levels of cognitive domains as assessed in the final exam papers. C1 is about remembering. As long as students can recall, even though without understanding, that will be considered C1. And then it would be comprehensions at C2. Now it will require the understanding of the students. The next level, it will be the applications. You understand the concept and you can apply the concept. C1, C2 and C3 are considered lower thinking order. The main emphasis it will be recall, comprehensions and applications. If you have your final exam questions set towards lower thinking order here, it requires minimum inputs from the students. The students only need to know the relevant concept and know how to apply them. If you would like to have critical thinking among the students, you have to go towards C4, C5 and C6. C4 it will be about the analysis. Now the students will have to diagnose the situations, which can be case-to-case basis, unique from the others. This will involve an elementary levels of critical thinking of the students. C5 and C6 will have the decisions and critical inputs from the students. C5 is about the evaluations, which involve the judgments and decisions. As for C6, involve formulating something which is new. This includes designing, developing, and so on so far. Now, having the basic knowledge underlaid, let us look at the example here. Many argue that there are courses only suitable for lower thinking orders, while there are also courses only suitable for higher thinking order. This is not true. The thinking orders of the questions being set in the final exam, in fact, is purely based on how you're going to set the question. There is no saying that theoretical subject cannot go for higher thinking orders, while calculation subject cannot go for lower thinking orders. This is the first misconception that we have to get rid of. Second, it is not about the topic determining the levels of thinking orders. It is also not about the scenario determining the levels of thinking orders. It is also not about the keywords, the instructional words defining the thinking orders. What we are showing here is an example how you can produce the exam questions of different cognitive levels out of the same topic. Let's say now C1 here is about remembering, and the topic now is about reinforced concrete beam. You may set your questions asking them to remember or recall. You can refer to the list of the terminology here to have an idea how you can set the question. Let's say now for C1, define reinforced concrete beam. Now if you want it to be C2, you are looking into the understanding. It is more towards discussions, descriptions, explanations, and etc. Taking this as an example, discuss the functions of a reinforced concrete beam. Now when come to the C3, we are talking about the applications. For example, based on the architectural drawing given, propose a suitable layout of reinforced concrete beam. Now if you see the word propose here, you cannot follow blindly the terminology classification here. It is said that propose is under C6. But why do I classify this under C3? In my case here, it is about the applications of the concept of reinforced concrete beam under a specific situations based on the architectural drawing. We always look at the natures of the questions in order to determine the cognitive level. Next, for C4, we would like to have elements of analysis. You may set the questions, analyze the loading acting on the reinforced concrete beam. This shall involve analysis of the load, calculations to determine the bending moment and shear force acting on the beam. This is analysis. If you want to set the questions to the level C5, that means there are decisions. Normally, when you want to set the questions for C5, the students will have to get the situation analyzed or fully understood before they can come up with the solutions. And the solutions is going to be unique among the students, as this involves decisions, and probably students are required to do some justifications. Taking this as an example, the reinforced concrete beam in figure 1 is subjected to excessive settlement and demonstrate a severe shear crack failure. The question asks about diagnose the problem and propose solutions to rehabilitate the structure. Now, if the instructions is only diagnosing the problem, it will be considered as C4. But now you ask the students to propose suitable solutions to solve this problem. There are various types of solutions. Students will have to choose which is appropriate, and that will be C5. Lastly, it will be C6. C6 normally involves the design for reinforced concrete beam for ensuring the stability of the structure. You're going to expect the critical inputs from the students. You need answer from different students, different ways of solving the problems. These are the components of the design. And normally when it comes to the design, it involves in-depth understanding of the concept, knowing how to apply certain concept, having the ability to analyze the problem, making decisions which concept is to be used or which method is to be used, and come up with the final solutions to the problem. That will be the highest levels of thinking orders. What you see here, for any topic, you can actually produce C1 to C6 depending on how you set the questions. As long as you can make sure the relevant components of thinking orders are incorporated, then you can comfortably declare the relevant cognitive level. Let us look at another example, just to prove that any topic, depending on how you set the questions, you can actually go from C1 to C6. This is about the financial statement. For C1, define financial statement. It is about the definition. C2, explain the steps involved in preparing the financial statement. Explaining is C2. C3, prepare the income statement and balance sheet based on the information given. This is the applications of the income statement and balance sheet. C4, compare the current financial performance of the company from the previous year. This includes the analysis. You want to know the financial performance relative to the previous year. C5, evaluate the business performance based on the current year financial statement. This is where you will have your personal inputs after you acquire the results in terms of the financial performance. Based on those results, you can conclude the business performance of the organization, whether it is good or bad. C6, propose a strategy to sustain the existence of the company in the marketplace. Now this one is really open-ended. You expect unique answers from the students, how they can make the company last and stay competitive in the marketplace. Asking them to work out the strategy plan, probably based on the conditions of the company, which may also require the analysis of the market. Again, you will see that under the same topic about financial statement, you can still go for C1 to C6. Let us look at another example. It is about the progress payment for building contractors. C1, list elements of progress payment to be claimed by the contractor. C2, discuss the process of the preparations of the progress payment. C3, produce S-curve based on the last 10 progress payment approved. For your informations, the progress payments are the payments made to the contractor in the middle of the project. Payment shall be made for the work that has been done by the contractor, being verified by the contract administrator or quantity surveyor. As for the S-curve, it is a tool to show the progress of the project. One of the ways is to track the payments that has already been approved to the contractor in order to monitor the project. Now, this question here, it will be the applications of S-curve on the basis of the progress payment. C4 shall involve analysis. Estimate the cost of the work completed to date. C5, diagnose the project, whether it is over budget, and propose solutions to minimize the over budget. If you're only asking the students to diagnose whether the project is over budgeted, that would be C4. What makes it C5? It will be the solutions that you ask the students to propose in order to control the budget. Different students may come up with different solutions, specifically meant to solve the problem. Lastly, C6. Develop the cost model for the project and recommend the amount to approve. If you're talking about recommending the amount to approve, most likely it will be C5. The things make it C6. It will be asking the students to develop the cost model for the project. Now we have gone through 3 examples here. You see now, for any course and any types of topic, it is possible to assess any cognitive level. The cognitive level, it will be determined by how do you set the question. I cannot emphasize more on this, as I always observe many lecturers having this problem. They are still embracing the misconception that not all the courses can go for C5 and C6, which is not really true. What restricts you from having the questions towards C5, C6? It will be the creativities of yours setting the exam questions. You can always do practice on this. Pick a topic of the course that you teach. Try to work out the exam questions at different cognitive levels. You will be amazed that you are able to develop the exam questions of the same topic with different cognitive levels. This shall boost your confidence, having the ability to design the questions to the intended cognitive level, so that you can produce the final exam papers towards the intended specifications as per required by the program. If the program requires you to have a larger portions of C5 and C6, it is doable. This normally happens in the 3rd year and the final year courses. As for the fundamental courses, normally there won't be any issues with C1, C2, C3 and C4 questions. The only thing that you need to check whether your program requires you to have the questions of C5, C6 for the fundamental courses, which are offered in the 1st year and the 2nd year of an engineering program. This will be very much dependent on the practices of the program.